Welcome to episode 100 of the Jacob Wayne Show. And with
Big
me
100.
is Kelin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Good,
You know, that's
good.
crazy. Like, just a couple of days ago was our, first episode reunion.
Yeah,
We missed it by a couple of days. Damn.
well, I thought about it while you were here recording, but we recorded a Fakoshka song. Corey filled in on 2 Gamma Pa shows. We had to make sure we were practiced up for that. There's restaurants we gotta hit up, shows to watch. By the time we were kind of getting to the tail end of it, you know, even though I fucking love you guys, I get a little social, man, I need to go sit in the room alone. So I'm like, yep, I don't think we're gonna do this in-person recording thing. So bummer
Yeah.
for you, the listener, but luckily there's not that many of you. So, wah, wah, wah. But I did pull this up. The first episode of the Jacob Wayne Show was, according to YouTube, was 2 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah. So we did do it in person. You came out here, did a little setup, I believe.
Did you immediately start uploading them to YouTube?
Yeah, I believe I did.
Okay.
Press the audio on the first one. I'm trying to see. I could have sworn we did video, but I guess we didn't. Yeah. I just remember the setup in the living room.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess we were just doing audio, huh?
Yeah, I think we did audio for the first, while. Then we did video, and then you just do video, and yeah, I think that's been the 3 incarnations.
Yeah. So then that would have been, let's see here, 2021. We're coming out of the pandemic a little bit by then. It's still sort of a thing. I think by then it was what? See, that's what's funny. I'm already forgetting some of the details of that. Which I stand by saying that people were going to get back to normal a lot more easily than some people feared. That's my opinion. But, what was the Delta? What were the different types of corona?
The variants.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. I just remember Delta and Omicron.
Omicron, I think. Yeah, maybe 2 years ago was Omicron era. And then there was hydrocodone or dial triple sliptamine. I can't remember.
Sagittarius.
Yeah. Capri Sun. And so, yeah, in a weird way, I kind of feel like it started a little longer ago. But I guess, 2 years. We started out, let's see if I can read the summary here. Jacob Wayne and Kelin discuss the foundations of the podcast. They lay out the format and jump into subjects such as Batman, Bluegrass, the Republican National Convention, and many others. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. That format has definitely gone under some reconstruction over the last couple of years.
We used to talk about whatever we wanted.
Yeah, and then I realized half of it is a bitch session about politics, and I don't even really like going there. I will, obviously. But it's I don't know. It's there's enough politics rambling and ranting in the world. I don't need to add to that. And I do remember also I would get like feedback from people, and more often than not, I'd be like, I don't even think you process what I was trying to say with that, and so it just got old. Makes me feel for the Jon Stewarts of the world that really make their life all about that and like trying to get to the bottom of things without just becoming a spin doctor on one side of something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's mm, Heather Cox Richardson, and let's see if I can see her name from here. Sarah Vowell. Those are two kind of political historians that I would highly recommend. If you want that, just go there. Heather Cox Richardson, Sarah Vowell books. And then, I don't know. I still love Jon Stewart. I feel like he's gotten a little too emotional and weepy with his new show. And, like, I still agree,
Uh,
but it's just like, I don't know. It's for some reason the way it hits is different, and it seems a little too much.
yeah.
So that
I
went
feel
away.
yeah.
We used to do Dear Jacob Wayne's. That just got tedious. Science articles, news articles, just having those ready. And then, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's too much work for a thing that you don't get paid for. And it's not a thing I'm, like, readily able to pontificate on every week. Some weeks, yeah, definitely. But
Yeah. I feel yeah.
so it's kind of whittled down to music and movies, and movies I can just go off on. And even some weeks it's like music. Fuck, I don't really know. I haven't been listening to a lot other than just my usual fare or like sleepy jazz to go to sleep to.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, it has
There's some.
evolved to just be pretty much movie podcasts with occasional asides with music and video games.
Yeah. And you were right. It was 3 years ago. August 28th, 2020. I found the post. 2 days ago was 3 years
Hmm.
ago.
Oh, yeah, it does say August 30th on the YouTube video. I wonder why it said 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. So then, yeah, that was right in the thick of it.
Yep. Right. I think that's like the trip we came down and it was like, everybody shut down, stay home. And we're like, well, we're already here. We're just going to stay home with you
I
guys.
know it wasn't. And here's how I know. You and Corey came down right when everything kicked in, and
Yep.
that would have been around March or April. That was when Rudy Gobert, the Utah Jazz player, was touching microphones, and he shut everything down with that move.
Oh, yeah.
He did that thing, then they canceled the NBA game that night, and then like, yeah, I know it wasn't the case, but literally, like, you guys were on the way. It felt like everything shut down halfway.
Yeah. That's right.
And then we like walked around to see what food options were, and they're like, "Oh wow, they actually really shut down everything." So then we ordered food, and yeah, kind of sat and rambled about it too much. And some of us were more paranoid about it than others,
Yep.
and it was just like, "Oh boy." But yeah, this was August 30th. This was your next trip out that year, because I
That's right.
remember it was a little more relaxed. Like we're like, all right, we got masks. I think it was just you. I don't think Corey was on that trip.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah. Um, any other reminiscings? Anything before we just get into the music section?
No, I think you covered it all. I
Yeah.
do. I do miss some of those old stings. We had some good stings.
That is true. The music stings and messing around with the soundboard was pretty fun.
Yep.
Um, this is one thing I guess we could address. I don't know if I've ever addressed it on the show. Is if you watch this on YouTube, you just see my face. And we used to do the Zoom calls like everybody was doing during the pandemic. And you could record
Hmm.
as long as you wanted. and didn't have to think about it. But then at one point, they're like, all right, pandemic's kind of easing off, and now we're going to try to be a business that makes some money or adjustments by, getting you to sign up for premium. And so they were like, you can only do 45-minute, um, two screens, and it can only be two people or only three or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I just remember I was like, well, that sucks because that like kills the flow of the conversation a little bit. And then I found out about this OBS software where you can like capture different things, and it's just like overall better than Zoom. But that being said, if you are a listener and you feel strongly about it and you want to bring back seeing the other person's face, are you willing to do that, Kelin?
Yeah.
Okay.
If the people want it.
If the people want it, we can give it to them. That being said, I don't know how we'll go about it. Maybe we do go back to Zoom, or I think that there is another new service out these days for podcasters that it's like similar. Um, but yeah, that requires you to write the Jacob Wayne Show at gmail.com and let me know that that's what you want. Because
Yep.
I've had a couple of local bands around here hit me up, and they're like, oh, well, like, we'd totally be down to do an interview. And I was like, I haven't done interviews for a while. There was like a stretch there where I was like getting a couple people booked and going through the thing with them. And part of that
Yep.
is having both screens and all that. But yeah, I don't know. As always, anything you do, it takes practice. You got to get better and better. Um, so right off the bat, I don't think my interviews were that great. I don't think they were that bad either. But yeah, I don't know. I noticed that I'd rather rant or get in the weeds about a movie thing or a music thing with somebody I have a rapport with. And I don't know if this is like necessarily an interviewee type podcast, but that's another thing you could write me about is if you want to see more interviews, I could start weaving those back in. Maybe it could be a thing. Talk to bands about their musics and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth it. And then hopefully, they'd give you accrue more listeners
Right.
when they're like, hey, check out this podcast we were on.
Yeah, I imagine that would be the faster way to build this thing. So yeah, all right. But so there is that. Uh there was something else before getting going. Oh yeah, the stings and all that. Like I guess just the spontaneity of that and being able to see the facial reactions and all that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if that's ever gonna come back, and the soundboard's a bit too addicting.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah. I think what I would like to do that other podcasts do, because I think it would be a little different, is kind of like actual watch some internet videos and react to them.
Uh-huh.
One thing I really liked about Your Mom's House, I still do, but I feel like it's changed just a slight bit. And, I'm not doing the whole criticism like it's worse or better or whatever. It's just more so if I were to do it, it would maybe be different types of content. They go pretty hard on their videos with messed up stuff or people being pretty fucking wild and weird, and it's like I want a touch of that, but I'm actually much more fascinated by like watching more science angled stuff and perhaps more lighthearted things in the news, if you will.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, there was that one time yeah, it must have been you. I just played all the collection of Mel Gibson grunts and noises from film.
Oh yeah.
That was nice.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
quite the collage.
yeah, a little bit more of
Uh,
that. But I think part of what was effective about that is you couldn't even see the video; you just had to react to the sounds.
yeah.
So maybe there's something there. With
Indeed.
that, let's get into the usual music thing. Um, what do you got that you're listening to? Anything new?
Well, I haven't had a chance to work through all of these, but the one I'm excited for that I just saw, I didn't even hear about it, is Jubilee by Old Crow Medicine Show.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been putting out album after album of gold, so I'm excited to check out their latest offering. That should be good.
That's a name I know, but I always forget exactly what they do. Are they just kind of a bluegrass outfit?
Yeah, they do bluegrass, but they do really like stompy, energetic bluegrass. Like they're hardcore partiers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dudes in the band look like 20 years older than they are because they party so hard.
Uh,
Yeah, it's but no, they get down. They got like a song called Alabama High Test. That's like they got another song just called Methamphetamine. They got a lot of songs about just partying hard and getting crazy. Yep. So they're a fun band. They got some just also just some really good songs. They worked with Bob Dylan. They wrote Wagon Wheel with Bob Dylan or got it popular first.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're awesome.
Um, would you classify them as new grass, or are they pretty traditional?
I'd say they'd be more in the newgrass vein. They definitely do some untraditional stuff,
Yeah. They got a drummer?
but I th- I think on some stuff they do. Yeah, some albums they do.
Okay. Well, there you go. Old Crow Medicine Show. What was the name of the album again?
Jubilee.
Jubilee.
Yeah.
Did that come out this year?
Yeah, it just came out like a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I totally didn't even hear about it. So I was when I was pulling up to listen to some stuff, I was just like, oh, sweet, there we go. I know that band.
All right. I'll hit you with one. Have you heard of the Clientele?
I don't believe so.
I'll do a brief description. This was. I sent you a pitchfork list of like the top 40 or 50 albums of the year so far.
Yeah.
So I just, yeah, started. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the bottom of the list. I mean, that's how those lists usually go. Um, excuse me. So I started off with this one. I'll say the title in a minute, but I'm on their bio because I was like, I was actually genuinely intrigued by this, and we'll check out more of their stuff. But the Clientele are a guitar pop band who instantly came up with a sound that was all their own, hazy, autumnal, and hookily sad with yearning vocals chiming, arpeggiated guitars, and a calmly elastic rhythm section, and tinkered with it successfully over a long, fruitful career. Early albums like 2000's Suburban Light had obvious roots in the transcendentally morose chime of Galaxy 500 and Feltz, but the Clientele had enough tenderly lush melodies of their own to escape sounding like a tribute band. As they grew musically, they were able to add elements to their core sound seamlessly. Strings on 2005's Strange Geometry, Haunted Folk on 2009's Bonfires on the Heath, and world music on 2017's Music for the Age of Miracles. Now, a
Huh.
lot of that is bio fluff writing, and by reading that, you know me well enough to know that they're like, that's a lot of stuff Jacob's not really into. Folksy, like all this and that. But I will say, this new one, 2023's I Am Not There Anymore, really kind of stuck out to me, and I've listened to it 3 times, which I think is pretty substantial for
Wow.
newer stuff. Twice while I was just gaming and like it was just kind of backgroundy, and then once on my walk. And there still is a little bit of that um, folksy pop thing that makes me cringe a little bit, makes my butthole pucker. I just like it's too sincere or sweet. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like an adult being really like, ooh, like I don't know. Like it
Gotcha.
just like makes me like god. But it's only a little bit. Like there's a lot in here that like it's really adventurous layering of different things. Like at times it almost feels like 90s Beck, and it did have a very like 90s sort of it. Yeah, Beck is the one I kept coming back to, and I yeah
Oh,
maybe
nice.
bits of Radiohead, but kind of more the simplicity of Beck. But it's not like the humor of Beck in the sampling and the layering. It's so that's kind of where the Radiohead comes in. Kind of reminded me of Amnesiac from them. But yeah, like kind of shifts and switches, and there'll be like a little break beat, soft break beat going, and but they got strings and just a nice little guitar part, and yeah, titles like Fables of the Silver Link, Garden Eye Mantra, Lady Grey. It's very like artful, and I think in the bio calling them autumnal really stuck in my brain. I'm like, yeah, I'd see that. That is something like walking around in crunchy leaves kind of vibe.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I could see like holding hands with a lady or a beau, whatever you prefer, and just be like, oh yes, yes, aren't we artsy and young and in love?
Well,
So yeah,
damn.
I'll give it some credit. I actually listened to a few more, but I don't have the information readily available, and I thought they deserved more than one listen. But I actually went through that list, the first three, if not four. I was like, well, how about that? Like, all of these are tolerable, if not enjoyable. Maybe don't
Dang.
necessarily go down my street as much, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Interesting. I'll have to start working towards it. What was that band name again?
The clientele, and
Nice.
I'm not there anymore. Is the name of the album.
Cool.
And I think part of what I like about them is they're from the UK.
Ah, gotcha.
There's something in like UK pop and folksiness and punk. I just prefer it from the UK as opposed to America. I wish I could narrow it down. Maybe it is like I don't know the tone of the voice thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that makes sense.
That being said, I don't like rap from the UK. That accent rapping just annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah, that also makes sense. Uh, and the slang's all weird.
What was that one video? It's like ba da da in the corridor.
Smoke the reefer in the corridor. Yeah, the
Yeah, just like
cursal massive.
just,
Yeah,
just like
that's
that's
a, that's
that's
like a,
that's a massive bruv. You're like,
yeah.
uh,
Huh?
I don't know what it is.
I don't either, but I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your next thing you got?
The next one I saw was the Turnpike Troubadours, who I've never
Turd
really
pike
listened. Turn.
turn. Okay, I was making sure. I was like,
That's a good band name, though.
that's a more GG Allen thing, but
Indeed.
anyway,
Oh,
continue. Turnpike. What again?
Troubadours.
Turnpike Troubadours. Okay.
So apparently they had to take a break with some alcohol issues for
What?
a while, but they
Okay.
came back with this album, A Cat in the Rain.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just interesting, kind of like that. What you were saying, not definitely not autumnal, but like the folky little old country, little bit of just like like more modern folk kind of mixed all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. It sounded nice. It was good. I didn't give it a full listen through. I was just kind of checking it out, and I was like, no, this is good. Apparently, they're like selling out arenas, so they're getting pretty popular. But
Okay.
again, that could be bio fluff. They don't say which arenas, but
Hey, just being able to say you're playing arenas counts for something.
yep. I've played arenas. It's just like the ones where they do the rodeo.
Sure, you can get away with it.
Exactly. I've stretched that for resumes and such many a time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Total
but no, I was
segue
digging it.
onto job
Indeed.
hunting right there. I was reading an article where they're like, if you're trying to like get a job and it's not just continuing teaching, like you're trying to not be a teacher anymore, is like take teacher out of your resume because there's like a bias for it in the world outside of education. So they're like,
Oh yeah.
put in educator or like curriculum design or something.
Oh wow.
And it's just because like, and it's like I believe it. Just like people, it's the stigma of like those that can't do teach bullshit, and
Yeah.
like yeah. Anyway, I have to bitch and moan in pieces and moments during this job hunt because yeah, that's all my resume reflects is like either I reference the cooking I did when I was young 20s, art assistant at USU, or teacher. And then, of course, people also don't really like self employed artist, musician.
Yeah, I
So,
gotta spin that.
yeah, I doing the little LinkedIn updates like project management, music production. And it's like video creation, social media marketing. Like, I technically do all
Podcasting.
that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, ugh, I just, the whole, it feels like dishonesty to me. But I guess
No,
that's what people kind of
you're
want.
being too good, man. There's so many people out there doing all that stuff worse than you and getting paid for it. So,
Yeah. What I've heard though is there's an app I'll have to research it, but that it just automates sending your resume out. And seeing as how you got things like ZipRecruiter that like automatically AI eliminates so many people's resumes while applying,
yeah.
I was like, man, maybe I'll just play that game. Like, I'll keep looking locally for stuff that I actually like. Ooh, that might be nice to get to know them and help that company. Like, ones that you really care about. But if you're just like looking for clock in, clock out work, especially like remote gigs, just I'm gonna use this thing maybe and just shoot my resume everywhere and let the bot like do all that. See
Yeah,
how
that's
it
a good
goes.
option.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, that's enough about job hunting stuff. That just stuck out to me. It's just like, yeah, I
But
played arenas.
exactly. Uh,
You got any other music suggestions? I think I'm scraping the barrel already.
yeah, I got two more quick ones. One of them is just total random. There's a guy on the cover of it, kind of just a weird looking dude, not a dude that looks like he's going to play a saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's holding a saxophone, and it's called Comfort Zone, and his name is Huge Groove, like
Huge.
EUGE. So I was like, huge,
Yeah.
exactly. So I had to listen to it, and it's that lagoon jazz, just like all super slow, and the sax is all sensual, like old Kenny G stuff.
Okay. I didn't know
Oh,
that was called
which
Lagoon Jazz.
that's what I always think of. I don't know how often you went to Lagoon, but I remember riding a little sky ride, and
Oh, that's what you mean.
you're going along a ding ding ding, where did it, that
Yeah.
kind of that tasty jazz.
I would call
People
it.
call it smooth jazz,
I
but
call it
yeah,
Shopko Jazz.
there you go. Shot, yeah, that's exactly the
When you
stuff.
said Lagoon, I thought you were actually talking about that. Like that's a thing in the South or something. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
Lagoon Jazz, huh?
that's a Utah specific Northern Utah reference.
Yeah. I never went there. Like I've
uh,
been once in like late 20s because I don't like rides. I don't like going on the rides. So yeah, I'm pretty
yeah,
like useless there. It's just like, no, yeah, go on that. I'll have a tasty treat and watch. And they're like, come on, man, like feel like shit. Get on this thing. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
yeah. They've been getting less fun. I haven't been on one in a long time. I'm pretty sure if I went now, I'd probably just puke. So
Yeah.
Uh,
Halloween nights. Is that one? Is that fun there?
oh yeah, the Frightmares.
Frightmares or
Yeah.
whatever. That seemed like that might be fun.
Yeah, those rides aren't too bad. The little haunted house ones aren't like aggressive physically. They're just a cool little tour through some animatronics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could be fun. That'd probably be the time to go for you if you don't like rides.
Yeah. Well,
So
I also
yeah,
don't like spending money for that kind of stuff.
yeah, exactly. There's much better things you could do. It's getting really expensive too. So,
It
and all
co-
you do is listen to Yee's Groove.
yeah. Don't call me crazy, but I kind of prefer just getting some, you know, gin or tequila and watching some horror movies. Like hell yeah,
Yeah,
that's my Frightmares.
that's a Halloween.
Yeah. But
Huh.
do you would you say you enjoyed Huge Groove?
It's like that. It's that smooth jazz stuff. Like I would go to some many other artists that are in that vein, but are definitely not. I wouldn't classify as smooth jazz, but are like in the same soundscape. But they
Yeah.
actually play some like cool stuff. Like the music is pretty just like smooth too. Not too exciting, but the other guys will actually put some stank on some stuff.
Yeah.
So I would go to your Foreplay, Bob James, Earl Clue, that kind of stuff if I was going to be recommending anything like this. But
Mm-hmm.
no, this one's not bad. So, why not? Try it out. Huge groove.
Does he do
Huge.
anything satirical with it, like, or is it pretty just right on the nose that kind of
Uh,
shopko jazz?
yeah, it sounds like he's just right on it and try. Yeah, it sounds to me like he's just trying to get on some playlists.
Sure.
The Shopko Jazz playlist.
Yeah.
Trying to get on that stuff, which cool. Dentist office playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kenny F. Sharp.
Yeah. Uh,
And then you said
and
you
then
had one more.
the other one I checked out just quick was this band called Blitzen Trapper. Is kind of the same way as that other band I was talking about. They're a little more, definitely more modern with the reverby, uh, folky stuff, more like that.
Yeah.
But they did some cool stuff. I liked their like harmonies and such. Blitzen Trapper. The album is Cheap Fantastical Takedown.
All right.
So I just checked out the first song on it. I was like, nice.
Yeah. Well, looks like Wheeler Walker Jr. put out a new song called Dump Truck. Haven't heard it. And
Nice.
that is all that is popping up on new releases for me, other than No Ford by Gamma Pa.
Bam.
That came out last week. So go check out another new single from my band Gamma Pa.
Wait.
You can look forward to a new Fakoshka track of a
Yeah.
song that's 10 years old called Charlie.
Yeah.
That'll be coming out at some point in the not too distant future.
Hey, go hit that miso soup remix. That shit sounds awesome.
Yeah. Miso
That
Soup is
mastering
also
is
under
impressive.
Fakoshka on all our
Yeah.
streaming services. That does not have Corey on it. That's just Kelin and I and Brandon Shockey from Gamma Pa on some backup vocals.
Yeah.
And
You on saxophone?
yeah,
A
yeah.
rare treat.
Yeah, can't really hear it though, but it's in there.
On the master, you could hear it.
I
I thought
disagree.
it was pumping
I
out.
disagree. You can't really hear it. It's
Uh,
in there. If you know what if you're listening for it, you're like, oh, there it is. But yeah, it is not prominent. I do not go off on the saxophone by any means. Yeah, that's all I got. I think everything else I'd just be kind of pulling it out of my ass.
well, sounds good. Well, I'm excited to check out those ones you were talking about. I'm gonna have to go give that one a listen.
Yeah,
It's
it
interesting.
should be at least like, all right, they're trying.
There
It's
you go.
refreshing in that way.
Yeah.
Um, I'll hit you with one or the other question just to round this all out. I'll try to think of these in the future. Uh, if you had a choice in rock music, would you prefer raw production, but it's simple, but it has like kind of that honesty to it. Like you feel like they're really feeling what they're saying, and it's like kind of grungy and dirty and maybe not perfect, or really skilled musicianship, but it's like that really overproduced thing, like the vocal like kind of fades out and then you're like, what do you prefer? What do you think rock music needs to do to become, I don't know, become bigger again or more relevant? Because the let's just say that we had a conversation while you were here where we're like, this is kind of the state of rock music, and it was
Yeah,
just like had no zhuzh, no like people dancing. There's like no thing to it anymore. Like I think all the kids are either following a rapper they really love or an EDM artist or a pop singer.
yep.
So I don't know.
Hmm. Oh, I personally, I would happily lean towards the less produced thing. I don't think that'll affect the quality of the music or the musicians necessarily, but yeah, I definitely would go more towards that. Like I think
Like
uh,
you would take simpler songs, but it's like they don't suck. Like they're just more simple, but it's like raw production and coming from the heart.
yeah, like I think Clutch is like one of the best rock bands right now.
Yeah.
Have been for a long time. And they're, they're definitely not like overproduced. They sound all really close to how they sound live on the album, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they kick
Yeah.
ass.
I think that's a bit of the thing I'm noticing is a lot of rock music is like, oh well, in order to be noticed, we got to do like these crazy pentatonic, sweep, scaly, tappy things, or like really elongated solos, or just like I don't know, like I want to like resist using the word complicated because some of that, once you know how to do it, is actually not that complicated, but it's just I don't know, like this isn't really a dig at the group, but Animals as leaders. Most
Uh
of
huh.
my rock musician buddies, like, they either gravitate that direction and love Animals as leaders, or there's the other direction, which is the prog rock stuff, like King Gizzard.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, it's for me, neither one is really for me, but it's not the statement like they're not good or anything. But what I am kind of observing is that I feel like those being the main things in rock music right now is sort of what's creating like a niche for it rather than having more broad appeal.
Yeah.
It's like this isolated fan group that just they're giant King Gizzard fans or they're giant Animals as Leaders fans, and then they kind of gatekeep that a little bit, and so I don't know. And then it turns almost into like Fish, and I'd say that kind of thing even happens with like Ween or Primus.
Yeah.
Older bands, like just people that are into them, like kind of are into them, and yeah, Primus heads are Primus heads, Tool fans, and maybe yeah, I don't know. Some people would like wear that as like the badge of pride, like oh yeah, because I got good taste and nobody else does. But you're like, nah, like there were times when rock music, like you could throw on the alternative rock station and there's bound to be something pretty good on it to varying levels, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I guess that's an issue with classic rock stations is they play the same shit over and over again. So now you still get Sweet Home Alabama every 2 hours, but now they
Oh
just
yeah.
integrate Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun, and it's just like the yep, this was all of rock and roll.
What's
And
happening?
Yeah, I don't know. And then metal is just like, man, like so much of that has become really overproduced. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's part of it. I think re I've seen some punk bands around here. I think that's a little bit of it. Got to bring some of that punk energy back in. It doesn't need to be punk or necessarily have that genre thing, but some of that attitude. I think that would be
Yeah,
a way to do it.
I agree.
Some DIY shows. Not that you couldn't have like a keyboard or like, but yeah, like accentuate the things that make rock what it is. That way, it's like, oh, I'm in the mood for some kind of punky, sweaty rock show. And then, oh, today I would like to go over there and watch Bonobo and have a mojito. It's like just a different vibe, but for the longest time, I always like dreamed of multi-genre shows, and more, I just like, no, I think it's a vibe. You don't necessarily want to watch Wayne's World and then jump into watching The Shining, you know?
Yeah, we
Set the
gotta
tone
keep
for
the
the
night
day.
going. Exactly.
Anyways, good
Nice.
recording with you. Happy 100th
Indeed.
episode. Thanks for joining me
Same to
on this
you.
journey when you can.
Been fun.
And on the way to 200 now.
Indeed.
You have a good one.
In 3 years.
Yep.
Bye
Maybe faster.
bye. Maybe.
Bye. How's it going, Dan? Welcome to episode 100 of the Jacob Wayne Show.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. When was the first episode you were on? Have any idea?
I have no idea. I haven't the foggiest.
I think somewhere in the 80s, but I'm not sure. I have enjoyed you coming on board, though. I feel like you've revitalized this podcast for me.
Mhm.
Really delved into the main thing I can probably talk about every week and still fill up about an hour as movies. Talked about it a little bit with Kelin at the top of the show, and I recorded earlier. And it's like even music I could talk about, but I noticed that it like can kind of languish at times, and I'll be like, yeah, I could repeat myself, and I don't know if there's a lot of new stuff coming out that I care about. But with movies, it seems endless. So I would say over 100 episodes, this has pretty much become a movie podcast with the occasional music stuff and video game stuff, maybe books every now and again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to keep my politics in check. And we were looking at the first episode and we were like talking about the Republican National Convention and bluegrass. And
Oh,
I was like, man, it's like, I know the debates just happened that sans Trump with all the candidates, and like no interest to even see highlights, whether it's making fun of it or not. It's
nope.
just like I don't need to see that. And I think for those of you that want political content, there's better sources. Because some of the people I talk to that listen to us, I guess I said this earlier, it's just like they end up talking to me about something I said, and I feel like they're completely not understanding where I'm coming from. So, like, fuck it. I'll leave it to the professionals.
Yeah.
But with that, something I did want to mention that I forgot in the uh, music section was one of my favorite little niche bands over the last, man, almost 20 years at this point is the band Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. Have you ever heard of them?
I have not.
They're. Did Kellen ever show you Unexpect?
Oh yeah, I love Unexpect.
So they're kind of in that realm, but I'd say that they branch off into their own thing where it's like this macabre art house, violin discordant metal thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not as genre jumpy. It's like all this one thematic thing, and then a lot of the members build instruments themselves, and it's almost like a stage play the way they do their thing. And they had broken up for a little while, and they recently came back and launched a Kickstarter. They're trying to release a new album, a new film that goes with the album, and then go on tour. So they are $9,000 and 20 days away from securing the funds it will take to safely, sanely tour the States in 2024. So all I would say is I love this band and I want to hear that new album, and the way Kickstarter works, if they don't get the full amount, they don't get any of it. So go give them a listen. If you dig it, throw a little money their way. I'd like to hear that new album. And for those of you that have never heard of them, just go check them out. I would say some of it is abrasive. You have to be into pretty avant-garde stuff. But if you're a lover of music and like truly the work and ability and theory and all of it that goes into it, then I think you'll like this band or at least respect them. So there's enough of that. What we're going to do today for the movie section, since we actually went on for a bit with Kelin, is Dan and I recently watched the new Flash movie. And immediately we had to cleanse our palate and watch the Batman, which we had already planned on watching together at some point, but it's a longer movie. But we're like, man, it's a shame to say it, but after Michael Keaton's Batman and the Flash, I wanted some good Batman. So we kind of did a compare and contrast as we went through both films, especially when we got into the Batman, comparing it to the Flash. And so I kind of figured we'd do a little compare and contrast review, and then kind of the state of superhero films and studios in general. And we won't overstay our welcome on this subject. I think there's pop culture-y podcasts that tend to cover the superhero thing and kind of more, not as an insult in any way, but kind of more the nerd stuff. But yeah, we're just gonna give our thoughts because we definitely have a lot of them, but we'll try to keep it concise. Anything you want to say up top before we kind of start getting down into the nitty gritty of the two films?
I mean, not really. I really didn't like The Flash. I guess is
Okay.
the takeaway for me.
So I'll take a little sippy here though, but why don't you tell me on a scale from 1 to 10 how important, interested, or I guess into the whole superhero thing are you? And as a side question to that, do you associate superheroes along with stuff like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Dune, or is it almost totally separated out for you?
Well, in general, I have a pretty nerdy background and nerdy interests. The Flash specifically was not a character that I was ever really into, but in general, I mean, it's a topic that I enjoy, and I would like to see good movies made with those properties.
Mm-hmm.
They they seem to just be failing for me recently, and maybe it's just that there's so many of them in such a short period of time that I've just very much lost interest in certainly paying for a ticket at a theater for them.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing them in general is kind of a hard sell for me.
Sure. And that aspect of it I'll save for when we're done reviewing the films, because that's a subject I'd like to get a little deeper into. But having heard what you're just saying, that sounds about right. I would have assumed you're into stuff that has thick lore.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
we've always been able to easily discuss superheroes, the dynamics and stories that they have, obviously some more than others. But I mean, for me, Lord of the Rings, Dune, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, like if an IP captured me, I'd dive into it and get really into it. And there's plenty of superheroes I was really into.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little kid, it was, yeah, Star Wars or, yeah, Batman. When I was really little, there was an old The Flash TV show, and so I said The Flash was my favorite, but I was like so little that not a lot of thought went into that. I think it's just, oh, he goes fast.
Yeah.
My mom tells the story. Growing up Mormon, they have this thing where called family home teachers or something like that.
Yeah.
And they come in and they just talk church stuff with you and keep you indoctrinated. But I was young enough that they'd kind of let me wander in and out of the room so I wouldn't throw a tantrum. And apparently I would run out of the room, put on some like weird outfit, and I'd come in and I'd be like, I'm Batman. And then like run out, come back, like put underwear on over my pajama bottoms, and just be like, I'm Superman. All that stuff. And then we had one of those living rooms where there's two doors, so you could just go in a circle. And for the Flash, I just ran by real fast. I didn't even say I'm the Flash. Like,
Well, clearly you're going to get that
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the running.
yeah, and of course these church nerds were like, "What's that one?" And it's like, "Come on." So, yeah, like the Flash is something I feel like I've always sort of wanted to see a good adaptation of. CW shows don't really cut it for me. Like, I don't, as far as TV, it's really hard to get me in on a superhero thing. Like,
Yeah.
I think the most superhero thing I watch on TV is The Boys, because it's so much of a commentary on the superhero thing and kind of corporate cynicism and all that. But to get into these movies, right before we get started, I would say that you and I want a good Flash movie, and we're into the idea of a good Flash movie, right?
Oh, I certainly want to see all of these IPs be successful in what they do. I would obviously want a good movie rather than a bad movie. I think that's a given.
Would you say you're a little more intrigued with the Flash than other heroes? Like, for me, they can do whatever they want with Aquaman, and of course I would like a really good one that's intriguing.
Yeah.
But I don't care what you do with Aquaman. The Flash is kind of right on the periphery where I'm like, it could be really cool though. And
Yeah.
it's kind of there.
There's stuff to work with, like for sure.
Yeah. So there's definitely stuff to work with, and first things first, let's just get into the Flash. And say that I don't think that they really pull, like, it's supposed to be an adaptation of Flashpoint, but in no way did I feel like this was a loyal telling of a comic storyline. Maybe I could be wrong, but it felt like, let's take all this IP that we own and try to do the multiverse thing that the MCU's been trying to do.
Yeah.
And be kind of like, oh, but like DC's been around longer. Remember Christopher Reeves? Remember Michael Keaton? Remember that Nicolas Cage thing that never happened? Like, it's just, let's smush all of this into a Flash movie. And so it's like not even really about the Flash. It's something that he can do that just pushes the story forward because no other DC character can do that. So it feels like they're trying to soft reboot the DCEU and just failing miserably. So they're not doing anything interesting with the movies that came before, that were, some of which were sort of decent, like Man of Steel. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
I liked Wonder Woman pretty good as
First
far as
one.
DC goes.
Yeah.
The first one.
So any, like, I don't hate Batman versus Superman like some people do, but I also definitely don't think it's good.
Yeah, it was kind of just okay. I saw it. It was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't love it.
But it's like, so so I guess that's an aspect of it. They build this as, well, maybe they wanted to push it as Ezra Miller because we were looking it up, and the earliest talks of developing this one in particular was 2016, maybe 2018.
Hmm.
And it was definitely 2018 that they had Ezra Miller attached, and like he showed up in Justice League and some other stuff. But obviously, Ezra Miller's, we don't got to go get into all that, but he's had a really fucked up like series of things he's done. Um, so you can't really market the film on Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
And so they pushed it as like, well, Michael Keaton's Batman showing up, and Supergirl's showing up, and General Zod's coming back. And I'll admit, in the trailer, I was like, oh, they're bringing back Zod, huh? And Keaton, and I wonder how they're going to do that. That's what intrigued me.
Yeah.
And none of that really matters until halfway through the movie,
Yeah.
or just about. And when Zod shows up, it's like, oh, scary. Remember this thing from Man of Steel? And then he kind of just wanders off and talks to a copy of himself and goof off again
Yeah.
and like try to find all the other superheroes and find Batman. And they, I mean, man, they try to find Batman and it's Michael Keaton, so it should look like the Tim Burton universe, but it just looks like a
At
planned
least
CW show.
at least throw some hints in. Like it doesn't have to be like a one-to-one recreation, but like at least a little tinge of flavor in there. Come on.
Yeah, like what in my head I was like, oh, the potential of this is you go into the Michael Keaton universe. And so when Zod shows up in that one, he has kind of a twisted Tim Burton-y look. Or like it's an opportunity to, even if it is a quick little shot, like here are these other Batman villains through that Tim Burton lens. Like you're not gonna get a scene of dialogue maybe, but like that would be the nerd Easter egg thing to do, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, Arkham Asylum, fuck, all these like possibilities of the Tim Burton universe. And if I were a businessman, I'd be like, introduce that and hint at it. So then if people leave that movie and are like, dude, what if they did an Elseworld, like Tim Burton's universe reboot? And then, like, because I think there are like some Batman villains that function better in Burton's universe, like a Clayface.
Yeah.
But you know, that's us like immediately kind of slipping off into making our own version of something and talking about Batman. This is
Yeah.
a Flash movie. But that's the thing, is like I don't know enough about Flash and his backstory. Like I think just about everybody knows that Batman's parents get killed. I don't know how official the, oh, Barry's dad gets arrested and his mom gets murdered. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard of any of that?
No, but I don't know a lot about the Flash in general, so I just kind of took it as a given that that's, a correct telling of the story.
Well, so if it is, they did nothing to emphasize it properly.
No.
It seems like, oh wow, that's sad. His mom got stabbed. Like it doesn't have an impactful film way of saying this is a formative moment. Like I think they
Yeah.
sort of tried, but like he obviously gets fucked up and emotional because he finds his mom stabbed to death.
Yeah.
But then he goes back to being Barry and he just starts running for whatever fucking reason. And because he's upset and running fast, he breaks the universe. There's no build up for that. And then, yeah, he goes off into this other universe where she's alive and, or notices that she is alive in another universe and comes back and talks to Ben Affleck, Batman,
Yeah.
and has like a kind of really generic conversation. And yeah, I don't know. It's like I read a couple reviews where they said that this movie feels like it was made by AI,
Yeah.
and I think that's true because it'll just kind of roll into this other segment and have a different tone, and a different thing going on, and none of it seems connected.
Yeah.
And
I it
yeah,
it even the jokes weren't hitting like a person wrote them. Like
yeah,
it like nothing was connecting. I think I used the words exhausting like 6 times while we were watching this movie because that's what it is. It's just exhausting.
yeah. I mean, man, and I think you and I are maybe both the types to like the classic third act in a MCU movie where like, oh boy, here comes the CGI fest battle.
Yeah. Mhm.
But there's plenty of those where I'm like, yeah, I'll accept it. We were talking about the third act in the Batman.
Yeah.
It was doing the standard superhero third act thing, but it did it for reasons and it built it
Yeah.
up to them and earned them. Like I think even earned that scene better than the clowns are cops and the cops are clowns or whatever in the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people say that's a flawless movie, but I mean, like I think that scene's like you didn't need this. But to get back to the Flash, it's yeah, every joke is just like what, huh? And it's not like you don't get it. It's just like what a weird way to put that joke in there. And it's like it's right after something emotional, and then it'll be like some kind of weird dick joke.
Yeah.
And
Everything seemed out of place. Like there was nothing in the movie that sequentially I was like, "Oh yeah, that was the right decision."
yeah, he at the very beginning he's saving a bunch of babies in slow mo,
Yeah.
and it's like just really weird. It's like, and you know they're playing it to be like, oh my gosh, baby's falling, and then there's a slow motion dog and his tongue's hanging out. But it's just like, why is the dog in the hospital? Wait, what? I'm putting a baby in a microwave. Huh? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, what's going on here? It's like just so weird because it's like while that's going on, I guess it doesn't totally emphasize that moment because while he's saving babies, there's kind of like this on again, off again bitching about his job phone call with Alfred.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wait, what? Like, I guess that's what it is it's like pulling in too many different directions all the time.
Yeah.
And they introduce so many characters that are just like, everybody's snarky and quippy and fun, and but none of them are actually funny, so it's just like
Yeah.
everybody's kind of an asshole in this. And it's yeah, I don't know. The lasso of truth bit with Batman is just like let's just mock what Batman is and you can do
Yeah.
that, sure, but it's like oh, you just immediately like took Batman down a notch, so now he's a joke rather than an interesting character within the story here.
Yeah. When you take everything as a joke in a movie, you better lean into that all the way or it it's not gonna work out. Like all of the emotional scenes that they tried to put in this, it's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You completely shifted tones on a dime. Like you didn't even like build up to it, ease into it, earn the scene. It's it feels so haphazardly put together that it's just not cohesive in any way. I think the worst part about this movie is the editing and the writing.
Mhm. I also blame some of the humor on Andy Muschietti, and we
Yeah.
can talk more about this when we do that one big It episode.
Hmm.
But I notice a big difference from It Part 1 to It Part 2, and It Part 2 is definitely more in his hands. And some of the humor that worked in It Part 1 was kids like just talking shit back and forth. And it worked, and then it kind of got worn out in Part 2, and then some of the humor. There's a scene in this that's pretty similar. It's I hated it in It Part 2 where Eddie goes down to oh pharmacy store, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then the hobo reappears, which isn't in the book, but whatever. Sorry, I could get off on that. And the hobo comes at him, and then pinned up against the wall, and then the hobo just pukes in his mouth, and they play "You Are My Angel, You're My Darling Angel," and you're like,
Yeah.
"What? Fuck
What are you?
you!" Like you
This
just
is
took
this
out.
is a Stephen King movie. Like,
Yeah, you took out
what are you
all
doing?
the scariness and made it like a joke. And I guess that's what I do resent is Pennywise got turned into like a pop culture jokester.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it, he's supposed to be creepy as fuck, like borderline pedophilic demon creature. Like, no, it's supposed to be scary.
Yeah.
And there was a moment in this where it's like playing some weird ass fucking song drop when it's supposed to be
Yeah. They
emotional,
had a lot of those.
and you're just like, what? And Michael Keaton just shows up, and he can be Michael Keaton and just sort of be half there. But man,
Yeah.
when he's just like, "You wanna get nuts? Let's get nuts." Remember that line? You're
You
like,
you
fuck,
remember
fuck
in the other
you.
one?
And yeah, they don't really get into why he. Oh, well, I guess they did.
Yeah,
He's
a
like,
bit.
he's retired because the city's fine.
Yeah.
So let's just ignore why Bruce does this. He would still be a fucking psycho out on the streets, like throat chopping 14-year-old shoplifters or something. Like
Yeah.
Jesus, Bruce.
Well, it saves them from having to actually write something if they just, hand wave it away. So,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Michael Shannon, same deal. Like, Michael Shannon's great in just about anything he does, but he's like kind of sleepwalking through this. And
yeah.
that's how good he is he can sleepwalk through it and be like pretty like, oh, fucking Michael Shannon. But I feel bad for the girl who played Supergirl because I thought she was the most affecting actor in
Yeah.
this to me. Where I was like starting to daydream about a Supergirl movie, and I was intrigued
Yeah.
by, oh yeah, Superman's cousin, like that is a thing, and I don't know, like her being in the Soviet Union. There's a comic storyline, Red Sun. I didn't know if they were trying to sort of do that, like what if
Yeah.
Superman landed in Soviet Russia, but like obviously the whole time we're just sitting here watching it frustrated like, well, are they trying to do that? Why, if they are, why didn't they do that? And there's no memorable score, just a bunch of rock and roll song
No.
drops. The cinematography's like a CW show, maybe a little better. The CGI is bad, and
Bad and very heavy-handed. Like
too much of it.
they were just like, yeah, let's just do this entire sequence as CG. And maybe one of the reasons for that is because, I mean, this movie's been in production since 2016. So maybe they just didn't have a movie to cut together, so they had to. But fucking
Yeah,
just scrap the thing. Don't release it.
start fresh and like quit trying to recut and re-edit and
Yeah.
well, but I don't know. There is something in this that's very Andy Muschietti of stuff I recognize from It Part 2. And they're like, make it jokey like that. And make one of the Flashes act like one of the kids from It Part 2. Or like It Part 1, actually, almost.
Mm.
And that just comes off weird because not only his personal history outside of the movie, but also because it's like, you're a man child. Like, who the fuck acts like this?
Yeah.
And he's not good. He doesn't. Yeah, there's a part in it where he's like running into. Yeah, he finds another version of himself, and they transfer powers just cause.
Yeah.
And he's all geeking out on first getting his Flash powers because I guess they wanted to have that moment of like an origin story where the hero gets his powers and
Hmm.
have fun with that. And he is just going around his apartment while the dude's trying to talk to him, and you're like, what is this, The Mask? It's like, oh
Yeah.
god.
Yeah.
It's all cartoony as fuck. Like, it's like, yeah, he's doing a fucking Jim Carrey thing. It's like, fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Like, do we get into the Batman from here, or do we talk about how disappointing its score is? Because there's nothing in it that I like.
No, I mean, the saving graces of the entire Flash movie. Let's see if we can go through them. No,
Supergirl
I
should have
wouldn't even
had her
say
own
saving
movie.
grace. Yeah, Supergirl, I think she did the best with what she had. She was um, better than the rest of them. Um, Score was bad. Editing was bad. Cinematography was nothing to write home about. CGI was
Lame.
bad.
Yeah.
Um,
I got
I
nothing, man.
what else is there? Writing was bad.
I guess what's the worst thing? Who's the worst offender?
Worst offender,
It's
I'd say
probably the
editing.
script. I go
Yeah,
script.
editing closely followed by script, because it's who really fucked up in this scene is hard to tell with between the writers and the editors.
This is one of those things where I'm like, um, if the editing was better, would that? Yeah, it's like if one of those two things improved, how much better would it be? Like, and I don't think editing could have saved that script as much as a better
Yeah,
script could have been fine with the editing they did. I don't know. It's really hard to say because I talked about that too. Like going from the Josh Whedon Justice League to the Zack Snyder one.
hmm,
Once again, the Zack Snyder one's wonky, but I was amazed how much better that was.
yeah,
And like the tone was totally different and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh wow. I don't think I'd ever. And given I don't watch a ton of director's cuts, but I was like, holy shit, that is almost like a totally different movie.
yeah.
It's like bizarre. So, yeah, I don't know. Let's get into the Batman then. So as we don't go too long here, but um, right from the get go, the first scene. Oh, okay, yeah. I have one more thing on the Flash is every character announces what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, oops, I slipped and fell on my bottom. Shouldn't go so fast. That's what happens when you go too fast and don't look where you're going. I'm the Flash.
Yeah, apparently they missed the show don't tell lesson in film school. Like
Yeah.
everybody in this movie did, I
Yeah.
guess.
So, well, and that's where I go right back to the script and like maybe the test audience thing where it's like, oh, like the fuck, like they probably got like a couple notes, but it was like 5 to 10% of the people in the test audience, and then like, well, shit, they didn't understand it, so we better make it obvious what's happening in this scene. Like it just feels like that, but with the Batman, it's clearly an homage to Seven
Yeah,
and like Detective Noir,
yeah,
and they commit to that, and they're like, that's what this version of Batman is, and whether you like it or not, tough luck. You ain't getting big old vroom vrosh boom Batman in this. We'll
yeah,
try to give you a little bit of that action Batman, but we have to get there. And from the very beginning, it's the inverse of that. Everybody announcing what they are, who they are, why, and there's that shot through the goggles.
yeah,
There's not like a big boom bang thing with the title. It just says the Batman. Then cuts to the goggle view. You hear heavy breathing. He's staring into a gothic mansion, and you're like, "Oh, is this Bruce Banner?" Like your mind immediately percolates with like, "Oh, is that or I don't know." There's a little kid playing ninja. You're like, "Is that Bruce when he was a kid?" Like, what? You're curious,
yeah.
and the music is memorable. It's Ave Maria.
Hmm.
And then that I'll just go right into is the way that they take Ave Maria and like mess with it and invert it to the Riddler theme.
Yeah,
And each character has a theme and they weave together during interactions. And like yeah, the dun bum 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 is like messing with that Nirvana song they use and
yeah,
like yeah, I've heard people nitpick that that they're like, you gotta use Nirvana in this, like, kind of takes me out a little bit. But I will at least give the score the I maybe you can pull up his name. Um, but yeah, the guy played with that and clearly had an intention with using that Nirvana song, and then like, yeah, he's this kind of detached, sad young boy, like kind of like comparing Kurt Cobain to this young Bruce who's just kind of lost and depressed, and yeah, just like there's so much more thought put into that music. Whereas in The Flash, they like, let's cut and paste the Tim Burton Batman thing because people like that one,
Yeah.
but let's do a lesser job with it. And I mean, everything in this in the Batman is better. There's nuanced
Everything.
decisions with the acting, the characters.
Yeah.
They seem committed, almost like excited to be there. The cinematography is beautiful, like every shot's a painting kind of thing.
Yeah. The tone, the subtlety, the editing decisions, allowing the camera to linger somewhere to give you a little bit of a breath in between. Like it's not just action, flashy, moving colors on a screen all of the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more thought put into it.
And sorry, yeah, the Flash is shorter than the Batman,
Doesn't
but
feel that way.
yeah, it's like the Flash is exhausting and overlong, and the Batman's just under 3 hours, I think, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, oh great, this scene now, and that was because that and then that happened. The
Hmm.
way the connections between characters slowly gets unfurled, you know where everything's at, and it works really well as a detective noir. Like, and yeah, I guess for me, I accept it and like it, and I think I know what they're doing with it, so I'm cool with it. The third act is like maybe the only thing is like, I don't know, do you have the but as I say that, I think of interactions between characters where it's like, oh yeah, they needed it though to make this point. It's
Yeah.
his evolution from being vengeance to a hero.
Yeah. It's the culmination of the actually multiple different stories
Yeah.
of, you've got the so main characters, at least tone and, message of the story route wise are, Selena Kyle, the Riddler, and Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have these backstories of, shitty abusive childhoods and the way they each individually deal with them in different ways and how it shapes their character. And the final act of the movie is the culmination of all of their stories all at once. It
Yeah.
works great. Without that final act, it would it would feel like there wasn't any resolution to
It would just be a really dark
what
ending.
you're
The flooding
exploring.
of
Yeah.
Gotham and then credits. You'd be like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
And I guess it sets up an interesting sequel, but yeah, you're not getting a narrative satisfaction out of it.
Yeah.
And I would compare that to The Dark Knight. And I would say that the Batman with this third act is better because I could immediately go to that third act in The Dark Knight and be like, take out the whole clowns are hostages thing.
Yeah.
Because the Joker's waiting at the top of this building. Batman has to go up there and confront him. And there's the people on the boat. People on the boat is great in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And then he has to go up and have this like moral back and forth. Um, how does an unstoppable force deal with an immovable object? You know, that whole thing is great.
Hmm.
Don't need the action scene with the. I guess, but even that, like, it's fine because you're like, oh, Lucius Fox, and he doesn't like the spying, so there's a payoff to the fact that Batman set it up to self destruct.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, that's just like trying to compare some of these third act superhero things. But I don't know. We went a little longer on this than I anticipated. So I guess I will get to wrapping it up a little bit. But yeah, the Batman was better in every single way than the Flash. So let's just briefly get into what are the ratings online. Do you have that pulled up?
Okay, I do, yeah. So should we start with Rotten Tomatoes
Sure.
or IMDb? Okay. Rotten Tomatoes for The Flash. 63% for critics, 83% audience score for The Flash.
83%.
83%.
Goddamn.
And I don't understand what movie they saw. Like, am I just missing something? I don't know. It was truly one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen.
Well, so we talked about this um, during The Flash, where it's like, it's also regarded as one of the biggest box office bombs
Yeah,
in
nobody saw it.
history. So that percentage, I guess, is somewhat attributable to people that actually saw it. So the
Yeah.
more people that see it, it fucks with the percentages. But it, I think, yeah, there's some online rating fuckery going on. It feels like there's just
It
something
feels
off
like it
about
to
it.
me.
Well, and there's that whole like bro dudes that are like Zack Snyder bros that are just conservatives.
Yeah.
So it's like they've turned MCU versus DC into a culture war thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm gonna like the DCEU stuff no matter what and fuck everything else. And maybe some of that is a thing. But like, there's also an aspect of, I think we watch movies to truly analyze them and compare and contrast and look at the art form of filmmaking in general.
Yeah.
And so, as a comparison, I know our friend group is way more into video games than I am. I think I'm into video games,
Hmm.
but I don't feel like I'm even in a position to critique them too much because when I play
Yeah.
them, I usually have a podcast on and I'm doing it to unwind and relax. And I think a lot of people go to a movie, they're like, yeah, cool, Flash. Oh, there was a funny. Oh, the babies. Look at the babies. Oh my god, popcorn. They just want to
Yeah.
unwind and do something outside or kind of in public. Unwind, relax, have some popcorn and some treats. And I remember the Flash. Yeah, it's good, good character. They're not looking much deeper than that. But there is
Yeah.
something a little like I don't know how you could like the Flash more than the Batman.
Yeah.
I really don't, but that person has to exist.
I'm
Um,
sure they do. In droves, probably.
it reminds me of another movie we watched last night, which was the 2013 Carrie, which we'll talk more about during our Stephen King episodes.
Yeah.
But there was one person like, I don't feel like I even need to see the original Carrie because I just love this one so much and I watch it again and again.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, like you're just purposefully avoiding a classic because it's old. And like this mediocre remake that really falls apart is enough for you. And yeah, The Flash, maybe when I was 8, would have been enough for me. I would have been like, hey, I said the
Yeah.
dick joke and Batman, cool. But yeah, I
And
don't know. This is. Hmm,
maybe that's an argument that could be made that this movie's made for 8-year-olds and it's just I'm not the audience. But there's plenty of movies that are made for kids that are still enjoyable for adults. This was not
yeah.
enjoyable for me at all.
Well, another thing that showed up in a lot of the letterbox reviews was like, I this movie really fucked up coming out around the same time as Into the Spider Verse 2. Because that
Yeah.
has amazing animation from what I understand. I know the first one did.
Yeah.
And the first one had a great story, and it was like, yeah, this is kind of for kids more than adults, but it's a good story and really well made. Like
Yeah.
Pixar films, man. Like, it's like they can make me cry, and they're for kids.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is just so soulless, but it's those percentages that, like, I hope the box office failure of it. I mean, already it clearly had an effect by the whole James Gunn DCU reboot of the entire universe, but
Hmm.
I don't feel like these companies are getting hit hard enough by audience reaction and how much they're willing to pay to see these things
Yeah.
hard enough to like improve what they're doing. But I know some producers and some companies are aware. It's like, if we put a little bit more effort and think a little harder about this, you get good stuff like the Batman and Wolverine. I
Yeah.
think Avengers, Endgame, and Infinity War are great movies.
Hmm.
Some of my favorite, like, going to the theater experience there is. So this isn't a MCU DC thing. It's just like, because yeah, it leads into the superhero fatigue thing, and I don't. You and me maybe aren't the ones that will eat up any schlock they give us,
Yeah.
but we like superheroes and we want the movies to be good. And I think that's most people. There's definitely people that like were never into it that are like, oh, another Batman movie, fuck.
Yeah.
But it's like they were never going to be your audience, so quit trying to cater to that person. Make a
Yeah.
really good Batman movie, make a really good Flash movie, and people will come back. Because comic books and superheroes and all that are like, it's just Greek mythology and things like that. It's, you can tell it over and over again. Change the suit, change the coloring, change the powers. Yeah, people will come around if it's a good telling of a story.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You have any other thoughts on that? I think that applies to Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and all that stuff.
Yeah. Good stories transcend age, and I mean, I think most movies really come down to the writing. If
Mm-hmm.
you start with a bad story, it's not gonna end up well no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And this just started with a bad story. It was bad writing.
Mm-hmm. There was a
It's
thing I
never
good.
gonna work out.
Yeah, there was a, and there is. We'll have to maybe save this for another discussion, but there's like a difference between story and plot.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you can get people in on what the plot is, and they can even know what the plot is before they go in, but it's how you tell the story of that plot happening. They are separate. It's kind of hard to articulate, but at least for me. But yeah, like, you can know a plot, like a revenge plot. You're like, you kind of know how those function, but like, well, what's the story? Where do you start
Yeah.
with that revenge plot, and how does it unfold? And yeah, you can't just smush things together. That's why it's like, at least for me, the AI thing, it doesn't freak me out at this point, because if a writer uses AI as a tool to just get something going, fine. But you still need a good writer to fix that and
Yeah.
make it engaging and interesting. And if that, like, but that's how it should function. It should be a tool for writers to make a living, to get by, to do what they do so well.
Yeah.
It can't replace them. And it's like some of this, yeah, let's overwork the CGI artists, let's overwork the writers, let's overwork the actors, and just keep raking in the money up top. It's like, it's not going to work, it's not going to function.
Yeah.
And you can see it in all the major budget films, all the ones that have an impact with people. Like the new films of the last few years are made with passion and tend to be independent stuff. A lot of like A24 stuff. Even Blumhouse, it's like some silly horror movie stuff, but they budget it properly and they let the director have a vision with something, And hey, it's financially successful, and people had
Yeah.
fun being in them and writing them, and yeah. So I don't know. I hope all of this current SAG after strike. I'm there was some article saying CGI artists are going on, or they're trying to unionize. I don't think they're on strike.
Yeah.
Maybe all this stuff like will really lead to another great era with filmmaking in the United States.
I certainly hope so.
And one last thing I will say is that movies are not restricted to the United States. There's a lot of really great international stuff getting made. We watched
Yeah.
Baby Assassins. I think we talked about that on the show. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
And it's like, oh yeah, plenty of really creative, fun stuff is getting made elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
It's easy to get tunnel vision on just Hollywood, but
yeah,
Koreans are doing great stuff
yeah.
too. It's
And oh, shots fired here. You ready for this, dude? A lot of Chinese cinema I'm not that into because it becomes this homogenized state-run bullshit thing, which is sort of
Yeah.
a version of test audience to death. Let's censor this thing and just make it this bland pro-China action thing. It's just
Yeah.
like, but that's not because it's like there's been great films from there. Kung Fu Hustle, a lot of Hong Kong cinema from around the 80s, I think 90s. John Woo.
yeah.
Amazing stuff. But that's Hong Kong cinema, and that's Hong Kong back then. And we also know that a lot of movies, like, actually go test, like, have representatives from the Chinese government come in and, like, tell them what they can and cannot have in their film.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we got to make money, like, and they're a huge market for us now. But it's just like, what are you listening to? I think it might. I heard this recently. They had a map in the new Barbie movie that showed
Yeah.
Taiwan with a different color than China's, implying it's its own country. And they
Yeah.
had to take it out, otherwise it wasn't going to get put out in China. It's just like this is
It's just ridiculous.
yeah, this is not how to make film. So, yeah, of course I would love a great era of cinema in the United States, but if they keep making it cynically like that, then yeah, fuck them.
Yeah.
We can have a decade or two of like, wow, it's really not a lot of great stuff, but go watch stuff coming out in Europe, in Asia,
Yeah.
Africa, whatever. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
We went really long. I might have to release this as a two-parter. But thanks for being here and recording with me, man, and happy
Absolutely.
episode 100.
Yeah.
All right.
Big milestone.
Fucks, yeah. I think it's a better show than when it started, so let's keep making it better.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to the